the hedging out way, where you'd only do this if you're like a whale, thousands of Bitcoins, and the liquidity in the market's not enough, because you've actually got the underlying Bitcoin. So if it's ripping, it's fine. It's equivalent of selling your Bitcoins lower down and scaling out. So that's more just hedging out. But on that point, I think a lot of people focus on too much on selling out before the top, thinking the top is Armageddon. But actually, there's a lot of value in scaling out after you've got full confirmation of the move is now bearish.
Right. Okay.
And I think, I exited near the top of 2017, it topped in 2018. You remember it hovered quite high for a while. And by high, I mean, 15 to 20, 14 to 20, something like that. That's still really high when you think the bottom is, it went to 3.2.
So what you're saying, Willy, is like on the way up, you don't know where the top is. So you might scale out 6, 7, and suddenly it rips up to 20. But once it's ripped to 20 and dropped, you kind of know. So you can start scaling out at maybe 14, 15. Like, you don't have to catch the top.
Right. See, yeah, exactly. Your level of confidence starts to rise. And it's much better to move your large capital once you're very confident, and that happens after the top. No one knows it's the top until afterwards, really. Anyone else that says so is probably lying or drunk their own Kool-Aid. So, now after seeing a 2017 top before the data streaming coming in on hindsight, I can go, I think I can have high probability to pick the top rough timing, but still, there was a lot of false starts in 2017 tops. A lot of people thought 10,000 was the end of the line, and we doubled in like 1 week. So, I actually, what I did was I had a plan. I planned that when the top happens, typically what a top does is it does a dead cat bounce and it drops down very sharply, and then it bounces up towards, around 80% of its prior top. And the key is to know, once the top happens, you want to know, is this whipsaw a consolidation and just another sort of settling down before it does the next step move up? And by then, I had NVT, which was one of the first on-chain signaling, and that just dropped like a rock. And you could see that investors were not coming in. There was no churn between investors, and actually it was well overvalued to the amount of activity that was happening between investors. And that was like near 100% reliable that this was the top. And so, there was, I sold out not at the top, but, afterwards I scaled out, and that was high reliability.
Well, I'll tell you what you could do is when you've made that decision, you can quickly drop me a text, and then we'll let everyone know 24 hours later.
Sure, you must be a super whale to be able to need that front running.
No, I'm not a super whale.
I'll tell everyone, if I see a top and I'll tell everyone it's a top, it'll most likely go up even higher. I've noticed that a lot lately.
That's typical, man. That's typical. The last thing is probably a quick thing. So we had this tweet from Elon Musk that came out. So things were looking a little bit bearish, like a little bit crap. We had this tweet from Elon Musk about accepting Bitcoin. We suddenly ran up and came back down. I've noticed that a couple of times. Is that because the actual real demand isn't changing in that moment? It's just an instant reaction from traders who have actually got liquid Bitcoin. It doesn't. You're not actually seeing because it takes time to get money on exchange, and so like it's what's going on there.
Yeah, it's only the traders that can react quickly. Reacted within seconds, just like the whale alert that was false. It reacted within seconds. So it's certainly not investors buying in within seconds. It's absolute front running by the hyenas that are traders. They will jump on and they'll buy up those long contracts and pay the funding for it and run the price speculatively much higher in anticipation of the investors to going, well, I'm going to buy this, and they're buying at a much higher price, and then they're going to, they'll sell their contracts. So that's what happened. It got speculatively run up, and then they sold out, and then it was interesting. It dumped very hard, and it was weird. It was really weird because as it was being bought up, it was Asia that was buying, and it was Coinbase that was selling. So that's unusual. So because throughout this entire first quarter, we've seen this really unusual activity where Asia has typically been a buyer and the US a seller. But lately, or the West, I should say, that includes Europe. Lately, the West has been buying, no doubt from the institutions, but just constant selling by Asia. And in the Elon pump, it was the opposite. Asia was speculating on it. So it's completely different. I mean, everyone's talking about, the war templating onto 2013, 2017. And I think we have to be aware of the different, the different participants we have. And the big one, of course, which we all know, is institutions. And so we have to account for that, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. Institutions as a menagerie. You've got the Michael Saylors and the Teslas, which are corporate treasuries that are stacking, but then you've got, the Ruffers of this world. They're really macro funds that are using Bitcoin as part of their portfolio, and they're going to take profits. And Ruffer took profits way back after they had, what was it, a 3x or a 5x?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
They took out the original investment.
Yeah, totally. They got pressure from their investors, and they said, shouldn't you rebalance? So they rebalanced so they could hold the rest without, a lot of backlash from their investors, because it's free now. And we've just run into this March period, end of quarter, and you can see the steep drop as we approach into it. So my guess, looking at that, is that we've got this end of quarter rebalancing, bearing in mind if they got in from the last quarter, they've done effectively a 6x, a 3x to a 6x, depending on where you entered. And so if you're a macro fund, you probably want to rebalance. You probably have direct